I'm not shy to sharing my love and passion for getting you in front of people and speaking and teaching, whether it's on a physical stage or a virtual stage. I think it's a powerful way to attract your dreamy client and build immediate trust and authority. And today I'm inviting a guest who has been a mentor to me in this process, who is sharing some of the key elements to helping you step on a stage with confidence and also with the right language to bring in that most dreamiest client. You are tuned into the Best Damn Coach podcast, but something you should know is that I also host a limited series podcast. Think of it like Netflix for getting clients. In fact, the title of the podcast is called How to Get Clients. And I recorded this 21 episode short series. Every episode is less than 12 minutes. Put me on 1.5 speed and go listen, because it is the exact step-by-step playbook to get clients now, to think about what might be missing from your strategy that's going to help bring in clients consistently into your coaching business. Some of our listeners have said it's like 6 months of marketing school in less than 2 hours. And people are like, why are you not charging? This is the best podcast I've ever listened to. And so I encourage you to go check it out. Head on over to amanda-walker.com/limited series freebie, all one word. We'll even drop the link inside of this episode's show notes. I cannot wait for you to listen. And once you do, come into my DMs over on Instagram at @awalkmyway and tell me like what was the juiciest, most helpful part of the series. Welcome to another episode of the Best Damn Coach podcast. I am so pumped to bring back a two-time guest. By the way, Colin, I don't do two-time guests very often, but when it's you, we make exceptions because you bring so much value. So I'm so excited to have one of my mentors on the show, Colin Boyd's joining us again.
Hey, it's great to be here, Amanda, and I'm excited to have the conversation.
Yeah. I'm going to drop the link to the first episode we recorded together in the show notes just so you all can go back and reference. But I'm not going to do a formal intro. I'm going to let Colin speak to his expertise. But he has been instrumental in helping me double down on something in my business that I was clear on, which was my clients come to me when I teach and speak. And so Colin's been a really important part of my journey to help me double down on that, grow a system, and just do a better job at something I was already doing well. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because he's going to have a resource for you today. But give us a little 90-second, if somebody listening hasn't met you, on how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I definitely, I don't know about you, but I didn't set out to kind of teach speaking and selling from stage. It probably was like one of my greatest fears, as most people. I remember standing in front of, a small audience when I'm, a young teenager, just physically shaking in front of people and feeling like this is one of the worst moments of my life. That 3-minute speech feeling like it was 3 hours. But when I got into business, I had a few opportunities where I got to speak, and it just very quickly grew my business. And so I just got fascinated with this idea of like what it actually means when you stand on a stage, whether it be physical or virtual now. It wasn't so much virtual when I first started. But the fact that when you stand on a stage, you get this instant authority, because you're the one speaking. You get a connection with your audience, and you have the chance to get clients at scale, as opposed to just one-on-one selling. I think one-on-one selling is an important part of the business, depending on the price point of the product. But for me, learning to speak was just such a unique, powerful methodology in building my business. And so I only started teaching speaking and selling from stage about 6 or 7 years ago, and I've been running my business for 18 years. So previous to that, I used to teach personal performance, productivity, like I was life coaching. I've done career coaching, done lots of niches over the journey. But I look back and I just realized, for me, it was speaking that I loved, and it was speaking that really made a big difference in growing my business. And so just doubled down on that over the last 6 years, and it's been a good ride.
So good. When you were talking about that teenage, I had this visual. My first ever public speaking was when I ran for vice president of the student council in the 6th grade, and I had to give my speech. And I made a promise. I wouldn't advise this in your business. Don't make promises you can't follow through on. I made a promise to add vending machines to the student body, which in hindsight, obviously I had zero control over, but you're a young kid, but I do remember feeling so nervous. But I will
You're
say,
going to have 2 recesses.
yeah, exactly. Of course, that's why I won. They're like, yeah, put her in for the candy bars and the vending machines. But for me, I realize I do love teaching and speaking. Obviously, being a high school teacher, it's funny because I compared to high school teaching to what I do now, and this is a breeze compared to teaching in front of 15-year-olds because they are a rough crowd to please and get engaged for sure. I want to hit on something that you said in that I think is really key to drive home, and those are the words instant authority, because I think of times where I've been sitting a crowd next to someone who I didn't know was a speaker, and then they got announced and they went on stage, and I was like, oh. Or when you're having a conversation and you end up saying, oh, you have a podcast, and somebody says, oh, you have a podcast, all of which for me are, speaking opportunities. So can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit more to the importance of that instant authority?
Mm. Well, I think that it creates exactly what you said. I love that visual of sitting next to someone at a conference and then they end up being a speaker. It creates like a halo effect. And you see the person differently because there is something unique about being a speaker that, yeah, it gives you an instant authority. And I will say in the marketplace, especially even more these days, people are looking for people that they can trust, even with this invention of AI and the spread of it, it's artificial. So there's a lack of kind of connection, transparency that is seeping throughout our industry and throughout the world. And so people are looking for authentic connections with people. And even before we started the podcast, you mentioned to me that you're running a lot more like intimate style, high touch workshops. And I love that because it doesn't have to be, huge presentations. I know for us in our business, we do the same. We run these smaller, intimate, even virtual workshops quite regularly. And they help a lot of people. They position me, obviously, because I'm the speaker, as an authority, and they help us grow the business significantly. And so I think for people, if they're looking for that sense of I'm a leader in the market, and that's another thing as well. If you think about anyone in this marketplace who's a leader, I bet you they speak. I bet you they speak on a podcast, they speak on stages, they speak on virtual events, they host their own virtual events. Like speaking makes you a leader as opposed to thinking you have to be a leader first. And so what I love about that is that speaking is the cause of the effect of being a market leader. And so if you want to grow your market leadership, I think speaking and learning that skill of speaking is one of those beachheads that you get to create and position yourself as an authority in the marketplace. And then people trust you more and you make more money.
Yeah. Well, and that's really where, and I feel like you work out the kinks, right? Of figuring out what really resonates with people and what makes their eyes light up, how their body language changes. And it gives you, I think, almost like a fast track to know where to spend your energy and time as far as what to speak on, who to speak to, and all the pieces, which ultimately leads to more profitability.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the time people feel like an inferiority when it comes to speaking. Sometimes it's like, who am I to be the speaker? But I always think about it like this from the sense of you just have to decide that you're a speaker. It's fascinating. I remember when I was growing my business, it was about probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I was just starting to teach speaking. And I knew that, I've been speaking on stages all around the world for, 10 or so years. So I knew I was good at speaking. But if I was really honest, I didn't see myself as a market leader. I didn't see myself as someone who was really leading the market and leading people. And I remember one day looking around the room, I was in a particular program, and there was a few people in that room who were real market leaders. Like if I said their names, you'd be like, okay, I know who they are, right? And I remember looking around and thinking, like, I know my skill set is easily as good as them, but they are making like 10 times the amount of money that I'm making and 10 times the amount of impact that I'm making. And I realized that I was just playing small. And I remember making a decision in that room one day. It was actually was the top of a skyscraper in New York, which was a pretty cool spot to kind of
Yeah,
be
for
in a
sure.
workshop. And so we're overlooking all the skyscrapers, and I remember making that decision and saying to one of my friends, like, I'm deciding to be a leader in my market. And I remember writing down, I said, I'm a market leader. I wrote that down. I'm a market leader. And then I also wrote, I'm a leader of the market leaders. Now that was like a little bit preemptive. But what happened was literally within 3 months, I ended up working directly with Amy Porterfield, who's like, the queen of digital courses. And then 3 or 4 months later, I ended up working with Jana Kutcher, right? And what's crazy was before that, I'd worked with no like market leadership names, and it was like that decision in me allowed space and room for me to hold market leaders and to be able to work with them at that level. And I think ultimately when it comes down to it, all the listeners here, like it comes down to just making a decision that I'm going to be a speaker, I'm going to be a leader, and it takes courage to do that. And the thing is that no one's going to knight you. No one's going to go, I knight you as the speaker, right? You just knight yourself. And that's like a real distinction that I would encourage everyone to, consider, is going like, just knight yourself and put that in your bio that you, not that you're a knight, but that you're a speaker, or you host workshops, or you're a podcast creator or whatever. You just decide it yourself, and then the market aligns with it.
It's so true. It's the identity shift that's necessary. I find, I'm sure you find with your clients too, it's the what are people going to think? Or another self-imposed limitation is, am I doing it right? Is this right? What will the people say, about the way I'm doing it or the way I'm talking about things? And I started watching other companies and other market leaders that would make these big, bold, audacious claims like the best at or the fastest. And I started thinking, who's measuring that? Is there a report out? Like, is there a place I'm missing that they're the best? And that's actually what shaped the identity of my program and ended up like, I am the best damn coach. And actually, it doesn't matter if anybody believes that or not. It matters if I believe it and show up in that way, because that gives my people the permission to take up that big space too.
I love that claiming that best damn coach. It's like you just claim it, and I find that when you claim it, you align into it, and then people start seeing you as that. And yeah, I love that flow on effect. So
Yeah,
good.
totally. Okay, so now fast forward, you've established yourself obviously, and here I'll give you the market expert in speaking and teaching. And I literally mean that. And now you're taking on kind of this new role as author. I'm curious, like, did you always know you wanted to write a book, or like how'd that come up?
No is the short answer. I mean, I've tried to write a few books, and I've got a few manuscripts that got like, four chapters in. And originally I was I thought I would always write a book at some stage, but it wasn't necessarily on my like priority list. And I've been teaching this stuff for like 5 or 6 years, and I've just been asked so many times from people like, do you have a book? And I think books are fantastic because they, if anyone's considering writing a book positions you as an authority. Just like speaking positions you as an authority, a book positions you with authority. And a product makes you money. A program makes you money, but a book positions you. And so, I mean, I've been running my business for 17 years without a book, so you can 100% do it. But I've just been asked so many times, and then I got to have a chance. Wiley, the global publisher, approached me about writing a book. And so I found that I need some accountability to actually get something done. I don't know about you, but left to my own devices, I would just be distracted down at a cafe and talking with random people. And so I find that when I get some accountability, I get it done. And so signed on with Wiley, and one presentation away was created. So yeah, I'm excited about it. It's essentially it's the culmination of everything I've known distilled into a really hopefully enjoyable. I tried to add lots of stories in it and like funny anecdotes and things like that. A really distilled down to easy to read, easy to applicable book. And I will say this, I've read a lot of books on selling from stage or speaking to sell and things like that. And most of them were pretty bad.
Pretty dry.
I was really disappointed. Like so often I'd read the whole book and I'm like, did they even talk about speaking at all? Like, did they even talk about, how to sell from the stage and make money? And most of them kind of just missed the whole point. And so I was like, just when I built my products, I set out the intention of going, I want to write the best book on this topic that there is. And we've had some good feedback so far, which is nice. So if anyone
Sure.
grabs it, I'd love to connect and hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's wonderful because everything you do is that way and it's done with excellence and intention and peopling, which I really love about you so much. Can we talk about the title?
Yeah.
Because when I knew you were working on a book, but I hadn't seen the title yet, and then I got to see the title, I don't want to give too much milk and cookies about like working with you and your program, but there was an imprint that you left on me around really understanding that like statement, right? And that transition, especially when you're selling from stage, your claim, right? It like you always say, like you're one presentation away from like a client or a
Yes.
connection or
Yeah, the core
engagement. I
premise,
mean,
the core
so
idea,
many, what's that?
the core premise, that core
Yeah, the
premise.
core
Yeah.
premise.
Yeah.
So can we speak to like why you chose that, or did you choose that? Did they choose it for you? But like for me, that core premise concept just permeates. It helped me just go, oh yeah, this is who I am. Like
Hmm.
this is the red thread. And I often see this missing from so many presentations, and it's like all over the place. I'm like, I forgot what you were talking about. Like, what do you believe in? So can you just speak to that?
Yeah. And we unpack this in detail in the book. I think it's like the second or third chapter. So this idea of the core premise is that it's that red ribbon, it's that through line that runs through your presentation, it runs into your offer. There should be a direct alignment between what you speak about and the offer you make. And that's one of the big mistakes that people make is that like their content doesn't align well with the offer that they're trying to sell. And so the core premise is the one statement that if the audience is to embody it, believe it, take it on, accept it, then your offer is the logical next step. And so my core premise is you are one irresistible presentation away from the breakthrough you want in your business. Now, everyone's going to have their own core premise and it's going to be unique to your offer. Obviously, I sell speaking and selling from stage. So it's like a presentation, right? And so that core premise, that core idea runs, obviously, that is the whole book. That's what most of my business is built on, that one statement. And so I think for everyone in the book, we unpack how to find that core premise statement for you so that you can have a clear red ribbon that runs through your presentation all the way through into your offer, makes it a logical next step for people. You'll get more conversions, make more money, impact more people's lives. It'll be clearer for you to design content as well. And it's funny actually because I wrote the book and I wasn't sure on the name, and it was actually Wiley who suggested that. And they didn't even know about the idea of a core premise. And it was my editor at Wiley came back to me and she said, we actually think one presentation away. What do you think about that? And I'm like, I just laughed, honestly, when she said it, because that's been my core premise for the last, 6-7 years growing my business. And that's only a small part of the book. And she suggested that. So that was really kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I love that so much for you. It just pulls everything together very clearly, and it's obvious, right? Which leads me to kind of the next thought as you were talking. I find with many of my coaches who are listening is they come into the coaching space, specifically or service provider, thought expert, and they step into this space with two things happening, I think. This desire, they're brilliant at what they do, right? Like they can create transformation, get results, but they're using language that's quite vague, vanilla, if you will, using stuff that used to work, like I help empower people or get healthy or whatever, like old language that when there wasn't a saturated market may be interesting to people. But now we got to, do things differently. And then we sometimes throw spaghetti at the wall, right? And see what sticks. And the problem with so much of that, and I've fallen into this, I think probably you can relate to part of it,
Oh,
is
absolutely.
now we kind of don't know what you're known for. We don't understand what is it that you do. Are you, a health coach? Are you a life coach? Are you a grief coach? I don't know, like all of these elements. And what I love about what you teach and who you are, it's like it's very clear that you are known for this thing. What I also know about you is you could teach us a ton of things about business, and you do once you're inside your community. But the outward leaning, forward facing expert area is speaking and selling from stage. So I guess I'm just bringing this up because it's so important. People get so stuck on this, but that's not all I do. I do so much more. But that doesn't really position you as an expert at your thing. So I wonder if you could just share maybe a tangible takeaway or something that you've learned that can help kind of guide people and put the guardrails on for them.
Yeah. I think, yeah, this is a big one. And I will say for me, it took 12, 11 or 12 years of running my business until I found this niche. And so, people just have to be conscious of that. And I've tested multiple different niches at different seasons of my life. And so, but I will say that there is something powerful about owning a problem, a specific problem, and a specific process or solution that solves it. So for me, the problem is low conversion rates on a presentation. And the solution is building a high converting presentation. Right. And so it's just really clear. Now, like you said, I can teach a lot of stuff. And when people enter my programs, like there's so much around different coaching models and so forth that we can teach. But you've got to lead with one problem and one solution. And so when you do that, you get known for, people can refer you to it. I remember actually I was in a Facebook group one time, and it was one of the big kind of influencers in our world. And someone wrote, they were listing a bunch of people, and they ended up writing me because they were like, Colin is known for selling from stage. And it was cool just seeing someone write that. There was a list of bunch of people that they were saying, this person's known for this person's known for this. And I was one of the people that they listed. And it was the first time I've actually seen someone else other than me articulate it in such a clear way. And it was a nice indicator of like, okay, the messaging I'm delivering is actually hitting home. Now, I will say, before that, I was teaching a whole bunch of things. Like I was doing productivity, I was doing personal performance, I was doing like masterminding. And when I decided to just go all in on one problem and one solution and lead with that, my income like tripled in 12 months. And that's when I had all the opportunities come up. That's when I had the chance to work with Amy and Jenna and different people, was because I just owned a specific problem. Because all of a sudden in their head, they're like, hang on, I've got this problem coming up and I know the person who can solve it. In fact, I just had someone apply for one of our programs yesterday. They put in like a long application and they were referred by another person, and it was for a specific thing of like building the presentation, right? And so the more specific you can be with like a beachhead, like a leading point in what you do, the more powerful it is. And I think there is something to say about being clear instead of clever, as much as it's, nice to have big words and stuff. When it comes down to it, the people who are clear usually make the most money. And so, the clearer you are of what you do with the problem. So for me, it's like, I could say something like, well, you know how a lot of experts and coaches, when they present, they get really nice comments, nice feedback, but just very few clients. Well, we've got a program that helps solve that. We help you build a presentation that gets you clients every time you speak. And so like, it's just a clear problem, a clear solution. Now, sure, we do a lot more other stuff, just like yourself. You've got your own problem and your own solution. And everyone listening, you've got to find a problem that you can lead with, because then people attach to it and then they enter your world and then they can do a whole bunch of other things as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, so good. And I think what I glean from that as a reminder is be willing to like do it messy in the process, because this isn't, you're landing here, but you also gained a whole bunch of experience from being in other areas. You didn't just sit for years waiting for like the perfect download to come. You were like, oh, I keep getting better and better and better. And I think I look at all the people that I have watched and admired through this process, where they start is never where they end. I think it's like James Wedmore taught bartending on YouTube or something. I can't remember. I feel like that was James.
He did, yeah.
Yeah. And now, like, he's in a totally different space because we acquired the skill. And it's like, I started at health and nutrition coaching. It grows so rapidly.
Mhm.
I learned so much that now I give to others. So if you're listening to this, it's go out and take the action, get the feedback, right? Confidence is built by doing rather than
Yeah.
saying.
And I like the idea of like, because sometimes you feel like, oh, I don't know if I could do this forever, or is this my niche, right? Um, and you can just date it, like just give it a go. Run a little presentation, run a launch, run a promotion around a specific problem with a specific solution, and just see how you like it, see how it goes. One of my clients, he used to teach like kind of general investing, and he narrowed down to AI investing, like just investing in AI companies. And I mean, he's doing about 400,000 a month now, just on a webinar. He runs 2 webinars a month. And when he narrowed down to that specific focus, like everything changed. And so if you can find a specific problem with a specific solution, like it just crushes.
Yeah, so good. Ah, yes. I've just been using those words over and over right now. Like hyper specificity is the name of the game moving forward, I think. And, crystal ball predictions, among other things, but hyper specificity in so many things. That's what's working so well in our email marketing strategy as well. So it's great. It's really cool when you come in and then like echo the same, kind of discussion.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of that. I remember I was chatting Brandon Lucero, one of my friends who's a messaging expert. That's something he talks about a lot. Like I love that idea of that micro specificity. The more you can articulate their exact problem, the better. Like being able to articulate the problem better than they can in their own head, that's incredible. So yes, love that.
Yeah, agreed. Amazing. Okay, one final question for you. I want to go back to
Yeah.
the book. Is when you think about, what you want a reader walking away from your book with, like, what's the one nugget or feeling or vibe that you're like, okay, every reader, I hope they leave with this.
Well, my favorite chapter is the conclusion,
Okay,
which
good.
is only
Because you
like
were done writing it.
no, it's got a really cool story in it.
Oh, okay, got it.
And that's like obviously it's only like 4 or 5 pages, but it's like my favorite chapter.
Okay.
So wait for that. Don't jump to the end of that. And but I mean, for me, when it comes down to it, the ultimate thing that I want people leaving with is a renewed hope of what's possible, that they're so much closer than they realize to a breakthrough. And so often we make it a lot harder than it has to be. And so, obviously the book's on speaking, and so it goes through a breakdown of how to design an offer that aligns with a presentation and how to build out that presentation and all the tactics and practice of that. But ultimately, my goal is for people to just have a renewed sense of hope in their life, that they can deliver their message to an audience and make an impact. And I always do that rocking chair test for me of going to the end of my life and going,
Yeah.
asking that question, if when I'm 90 years old sitting on my rocking chair, is this something that is really important to me? Like, would I look back over my life and go like, I really regret not going after that one thing, which was one of the reasons why we moved to the USA was, I sat in my life and I thought, when I get to the end of my life, would I regret not at least moving to the USA and giving that a go and seeing how it goes? And I was like, yeah, I would. So we made the move from Australia to America. And that for me is like, speaking is one of those things. Like a lot of the time people feel like, oh, did we let fear get in the way, or did we live a life of faith? And if the book incites something, entices, it creates something like that for people where they go out and do their first speaking gig or refine their presentation, that would be my hope, that it would help them to get to that rocking chair moment and go like, I really went after my life.
Yeah. Oh, I feel that in my soul for sure. All right. Tell us where we can find the book. And obviously, I'm going to drop it in the show notes. But if they're like, heck yes, where can we find it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you just search one presentation away on any bookstore that you buy books, like, I mean, obviously Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere like that. Now, I will say at the moment, if you are listening, we've got some special bonuses as well, so which are complimentary. So if you just grab the book and head over to onepresentationawaybook.com and just enter your details with your receipt number, and we'll send you over a few cool bonuses. There's some breakdowns of different people making how they made $100,000 in one presentation. There's a whole bunch of breakdowns. There's some specific separate bonus trainings on just building your confidence to speak and all that sort of cool stuff. So that's all complimentary if you just grab the book.
Love it. We'll put everything in the show notes, of course. Colin, I'm excited for you and just grateful that you took time out to pour into my audience for sure.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Amanda. And I will say, if you do grab it, send me a DM in Instagram, just Colin Boyd with 1L. I'd love to hear if you grabbed the book from Amanda's amazing podcast. So I'd love to connect with you. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Amazing.